Hi everyone and welcome to this character profile of Dennis Tanner.
Yes, Dennis Tanner. Rest in peace.
I know, so sad. He's dead.
I know.
Killed off on Coronation Street for the 10,000th episode.
Killed off
What a shocker.
and run over.
Actually, it wasn't a shocker. We knew about it beforehand. But it's very sad.
Yes.
Sad ending. Will you be able to hear us talk more about what we thought about that in episode 403 of Conversation Street podcast, but we thought that it seemed like the right time at the moment to re-upload the character profile that we did of him way back in episode 107 of the podcast.
This is when we were just still podcast babies.
We totally were. This is like, just over 2 years into the podcast, 2014, I guess.
Our apologies for any inaccuracies or anything like that.
Well, and poor sound quality. I mean, I know we're not exactly 5-star at the moment, but it's a little bit rusty then. But if you were watching tonight's episode and you don't know who Dennis Tanner was, shame on you. You can fix that.
All the information that you need to know about Dennis Tanner from the very beginning of Corrie right the way through until his final scenes on the show.
Yeah, and can we just say that we've been watching some of the older episodes of Coronation Street recently. We got a 60s DVD box set around Christmas time, and Dennis Tanner is right up there with one of my favourite characters.
He's really great.
He really is. And when we did the character profile of him back in this episode 107, we knew him as an old man, didn't we, basically, from Philip Lowry's return to Corrie back in 2000 and whenever it was, 12 or so. And we'd seen pictures and the odd clip here and there of what he was like back in the 60s, but honestly, you got to watch him. In his heyday, he was an utter revelation.
Yeah.
What a fantastic character. So some of what we're about to talk about, what you'll hear us talking about, is literally just, what we read off Corriepedia or books or whatever. And I'm sure if we were to profile him again now, we'd be able to be a lot more enthusiastic and genuine about him. But
But we liked him when he returned, and we'll talk about that in a bit more depth, don't we?
Absolutely. So enjoy. So this week's character profile, of course, is Dennis Tanner, who sadly left our screens this week after being technically the longest running character of all, especially with Ken away. But bit of background information about him. He was born on the 1st of April 1942, so he was a bit of an April Fool. His parents were Arnold and Elsie Tanner, and he had a sister called Linda Chevesky. He was married to Jenny Sutton in 1968, and then Rita, of course, in 2012. Dennis first appeared on the 9th of December 1960 in the first episode of Corrie, and he was actually the first male character to appear, so that's kind of a big achievement for him, I guess. Nobody can take that away from him. He was in around 670 episodes in all, though, which doesn't average out to very much over the run of the whole programme. And it then ended up with him being the 71st most featured character on the show. Not only was he the first male character to appear on Corrie, he also holds the record for the longest absence in between episodes, with a whopping 43 years in between his old classic Coronation Street appearances and then coming back a couple of years ago. I think that might even be in the Guinness World Record, so good for you, Dennis. He is played by Philip Lowry. So originally Dennis was cast as a petty criminal, a bit of a wrong-un, obviously, and in the first scene, which you can see on YouTube, he's having an argument with Elsie about him, saying that he's such a scrounger, and they bring up the fact that he'd been in prison, but the writers quickly saw the comic potential in Philip, and they made him more of a comedic character in later episodes. Tony Warren also apparently saw a bit of himself in the role, and he even toyed with the idea of casting himself.
I doubt they ever would have let him.
No, well, I don't know.
Say what he likes, can't he? But they wouldn't have let him be in the show.
It's interesting to see that Dennis is the character that, I guess for the show's creator to base a character maybe slightly on himself makes it quite an important character. Well, Tony said it was a much better part than Ken, as originally written. There were infinite possibilities in Dennis that were never explored.
Too true.
Yeah, the criminal side. In those streets, there was always a bad un, a wrong un, and he was the wrong un. And Philip was actually one of the last roles to be cast, mere days before the rehearsals for episode 1 started. That is too true about all these possibilities about Dennis that they never explored, and yeah, the same can be said about him now. So let's look into his past then. So in 1942, Dennis was born at number 11, delivered by a neighbour apparently. And then in 1945, Elsie and Arnold, his parents, separated. So he grew up with Elsie as being a single mum. 1951, very important date for Dennis, because that was when he wrote Dennis Tanner 1951 into the house's window ledge, which we got to see a little bit more of today. And it's quite cool that that's stayed there as like a souvenir, like a memory of the past all these years. And it was nice that in his final scene he was there and he was saying to Julie that Eileen should never get rid of it. That seems to be the sort of thing that like a new producer might come in and decide to do, just get rid of something like that to stamp their to make their stamp on the street or something.
I think that'd be silly.
It would be a little bit silly. 1960. Okay, so we're into the actual program now. Although no, before this happened, before the program started, he spent some time in Borstal, so the detention centre, for petty theft. And then later that year, he was suspected of burglary after being found with £25, which is a lot of money in those days. Although
Can buy a house with that, probably.
he probably could. But it turned out he actually won that money on the dogs. In 1961, shock horror, Father Arnold turned up after a 15-year absence, but it was just to get a divorce from Elsie. And then Dennis got a job as front of house manager at the Orinoco Club, which is where he dated exotic dancer Eunice Bond, which Elsie disapproved of. And then after a short-lived attempt at singing at the club under the stage name Ricky Dennis, he left to work as a talent scout. And then one day he brought home a chimpanzee that he was asked to look after.
What, in the show they had a real chimp?
Yes.
Wow.
I know, it's good. They had things like that in those days. I don't know whether that was part of and when they had like the strikes and that back in the olden days and they couldn't.
Well, they just had a chimp because they couldn't have an actor.
I think I read something about the fact that there were so many characters and actors that couldn't be in it during the strike times that they did have to fill it with stories like that. And like there was the story
Like
about the
with
sea lion in the bath or something. But I don't know whether that was done or not.
Sounds
because
ridiculous.
actually, look, in 1962, that was when it says there was a strike properly, because that was when Dennis first left Weatherfield for London to open up as an office for this talent agency. But in real life, he couldn't actually be on the show because of the equity strike. So he had to come up with lots of cock and bull stories why characters couldn't be in it.
In 1963, he came back and he had with him Cockney Mavis Fox, who told Dennis that who Dennis had told that he was a wealthy mill owner returning to Weatherfield to see his elderly gran. Now, as you might imagine, this lie didn't particularly last very long, and Mavis left when she discovered the truth.
Yeah. So he was then back on the talent scouting circuit, yeah. And he discovered singing window cleaner Walter Potts.
If only he'd discovered Tim.
Oh yeah,
Could have been
he could be the
on
next.
Stars in the Rise or something.
The next Brett Falcon, which was the Walter's stage name, but Dennis was sacked for incompetence because it turned out that he'd failed to sign Walter to an exclusive contract, so he went off singing for other people.
In 1964, he got a labouring job at Amalgamated Steel, but he didn't like it, so he got himself sacked after taking the blame for damaged stock, and moved on to working for Elsie's boyfriend at the Viaduct Street Social Club, but then he was fired after Elsie and the boss split up. So that wasn't his fault, at least. He met Rita in this year and allowed her to stay at his house for the night.
Yeah, so this
And
was.
she's been returning the favour ever since.
This was like Rita when Barbara
She was a
Knox was in
lounge
it. Yeah, and it wasn't properly Rita, but when she came back later, they just kind of said, "Oh, let's say it's the same character." But yeah, I think a lot of when Rita and Dennis kind of got together in the past few years, they made out that this 1964 meeting was a lot bigger than it actually was, because it was like pretty much nothing. 1965, he completed a hairdressing course. There you go. He could have got a job at Audrey's, couldn't he?
I know, but he went to an exclusive salon, but he was mocked by the clients for being too working class. And he briefly dated Sandra Petty, though he could only have access to the storeroom at her father's shop.
Yeah, he only dated her so that he could get to her father's shop storeroom.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that left him with 108 Christmas trees when they split up. In 1966, he became entertainment manager at a Carlisle holiday camp, although he quickly returned to the street, followed by two thugs who he owed £94 to.
Buy a house for that.
He gambled away his earnings when he got a job at the betting shop, then worked for a while at Len's Builder's Yard. He is really a jack of all trades, isn't he? He's
literally no job on the street that he hasn't done, apart from waiter, I think, so far.
So why is he finding it so difficult to get a job these days?
He's got many holes in his CV.
Like when he went to prison.
Yeah, exactly.
So 1967, he resigned from the yard because he accidentally set Len's kitchen on fire, but then he got a job at Gamma Garments under Emily Bishop.
Wow.
But eventually he had to work as their debt collector. He resigned from that job after being caught late one night with Inga Olsen, who he'd been teaching English to and dating, and then he went over to Sweden with her and came back with her sister Karen.
Did he get confused?
Yeah, must have done. She was eventually sent away by officials. He went through a number of other jobs in 1967, including a sandwich boardman, ice cream seller, and taxi driver, and he also turned number 11 into a boarding house when Elsie moved away.
Wow, what an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess that's that was obviously his thing, wasn't it, about getting all jobs. It's like he was the Homer Simpson of Coronation Street.
All right, okay.
In 1968, hippies squatted at number 11 during a New Year's Eve's party, and Dennis fell for one of them, Jenny Sutton. They spent a bit of time in London together, then came back to Weatherfield, where Elsie refused to let them share a bed. But when they announced they were going to get married, she was a bit more supportive of them. They married in May, and then moved away to Bristol to start a new life. And that was all there was to say about Dennis Tanner for quite a long time, because he was getting a bit frustrated with the material that he'd been given. That then led to a spat with Patricia Phoenix, obviously played his mum Elsie, and they were having so much of an argument that the only time that the two of them ever spoke was when they were during filming. So that must have been pretty difficult.
Pretty awkward.
Over the time that he was away, he was apparently very fed up of being asked when he'd return. But he did a few other sort of jobs in the industry. He did some voiceover work on 15 to 1, which was a quiz show on Channel 4, I think. He performed in a number of Victoria Wood shows, and he was on Crown Court, War and Peace, The Liver Birds, and Doctors. So not anything that we'd have seen.
Kept his hand in.
Yeah, just a little bit. So back on the screen, in 1973, we found out that he was sent to prison for 2 years after taking part in a double glazing scam defrauding pensioners, like Rita. And then by then, his wife had left him. But if you believe the epic novel of Coronation Street, Elsie secretly visited him in prison.
I can't imagine Dennis actually getting involved in something quite as underhanded as that. It seems like a lot of the stuff he does is kind of little schemes that just go wrong, or things that don't quite pan out, kind of slightly unsavoury.
I know, I don't like him.
Theft.
I don't like him. I don't like thinking of him as a proper nasty criminal. He's just like a bit of a
bumbling fool who kind of messes things up.
Yeah, and ends up having to steal out of the till to try and cover his back, kind of.
Yeah, kind of thing. Oh, I punched Norris about steal something out of the till to cover my back.
Still off screen, we don't find anything else about him until 2009, I think. So there's this massive gap in the character's backstory that will never be filled, it seems. He moved in with Norma Fountain after work dried up. They got engaged, but he didn't love her. Just wanted to get engaged to her for the money, probably, and he jilted her. In the next year, he ended up homeless and went to the Roof and Refuge soup kitchen. And who should he meet there but Sophie Webster, who was working there. So he'd returned to Corrie, Philip Lowry, because his agent had emailed Phil Collinson, who was the producer at the time. Barbara Knox was consulted, and she said it'd be an excellent idea, and his character was brought back. This is actually one of the reasons why I accepted the contract, said Lowry. Dennis is brought back into the show as a homeless person. I thought, that is wonderful, because it gives me something to play, but it also gives the character somewhere to go and somewhere to develop.
Exactly what Maddie must have thought when she got the job.
Yeah. I mean, I quite liked when he came back and we got to see the homeless side, like the rags to not quite riches.
I don't really understand why he was homeless, though. They never really bothered to explain it, did they?
I can't remember. They might have done, but he was just like
crap happens.
Couldn't get a job. Yeah, exactly. It's the the recession, probably, innit?
Yeah.
Blame it all on the recession.
In 2011, he met Sophie and Sean at the kitchen, and they then invited him to Roy's Rolls, but he was a bit fishy for a while, wasn't he? Because we weren't really sure who he was, and he kept acting suspicious and didn't want to go to the street. And then
Yeah,
you
and
find
obviously
out,
Sophie and Sean didn't know who he
had
was.
no idea. But then you find out when he is looking at number 11.
Yeah,
and
he's looking at his etchings again.
Yeah, and he bumps into Rita, but he runs off when they recognise each other. So she tracks him down to the soup kitchen, and they end up getting closer, and she offers him her sofa to sleep on.
Yeah, we also found, which was a bit bizarre, that he was a long-lost relative of Eileen and Julie, apparently, because Elsie's maiden name was Grimshaw, and I think that was just something they added in just for the sake of it.
I guess though it does sort of shed a light on why Julie was extra
sad to see him go today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because she doesn't have much family, does she? So she'd take anyone.
So after the soup kitchen turned out to be a scam, Norris gave Dennis's details to the press. Dennis was annoyed that Norris has revealed his past to all, and he ran off. Rita and Deirdre tracked him down, as did Norma, who got all things straight with him. Then we had 2012. He was feeling a bit guilty, apparently, by then, of taking advantage of Rita's hospitality. So he got a job in Birmingham.
Yeah, he said he was leaving so he could go and work.
Yeah, and I think by then Norris must have been not needling him, saying you're just a scrounger.
Yeah.
I don't think he was. I mean, what else could he do? I mean, he'd come in off of the street.
Well, he couldn't do much, but
it's not like he had savings
to take care of him. Yeah, but he was being quite proud, and then I think they both sort of realised that they loved each other, and he didn't want to go and she didn't want him to go.
Yeah.
And it was quite a sort of, it wasn't sort of like an ecstatic sort of running across the fields into each other's arms kind of thing. It was kind of quite a very natural, sweet kind of, oh,
yeah,
maybe we should get married then.
Yeah.
So they did.
They did a couple of months later. I think that their pairing, it generally isn't very well liked by Coronation Street fans.
I don't know why.
I think lots of people would have preferred Dennis to just be out on his own, doing his little crazy schemes and things, and not be tied down by a woman.
Oh, nag.
I think they're pretty sweet
together. I think they're really awesome together.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't to be.
No. He got a job as a lollipop man later that year. But that was quite funny. Do you remember he was secretly being a lollipop man? He wouldn't tell anyone about it because he was ashamed. But Steve found out about it and he was ribbing him about it. And then they had some kind of feud. Didn't Dennis or Steve was playing up in outside the school in his car, and Dennis was not letting him past or something.
They had a standoff.
Yeah.
But the feud was ended when an army of lollipop men blocked the road outside streetcars.
That was a bit silly.
Was a little bit.
I also liked the scene late in 2012 when they were having that Rovers Pub of the Year competition, and they were expecting to have a secret drinker who'd then go back and report to the magazine about how wonderful it was in the Rovers, and Dennis caught wind of the fact that they were expecting someone, and he pretended to be the secret drinker himself, and he ended up getting free drinks all night, and then he collapsed backwards after getting a little bit too tipsy.
Whoops.
That was the kind of Dennis that I wish we'd seen a little bit more of, because
sort of cheeky old fool kind of.
Yeah, he did a couple of good drunk scenes during his tenure on the street. But yeah, it all kind of started falling to bits in 2013. Now this could have been a good storyline, but I never really I never really warmed to it, because I like the idea of reminiscing back to Dennis's past as a talent scout. But it was really the beginning of the end of his relationship with Rita, wasn't it? And had him going off with Gloria.
In 2013, he got in touch with his old client, Richie DeVries. Breeze, after reminiscing about his days as a talent agent, so he decided, together with Gloria, to put on some gigs at the bistro with Richie's band, which then brought the pair closer together while Rita gradually got pushed out.
Yeah, and Rita was getting grumpier and grumpier this time. I think she's mellowed out a little bit more since then, but back a year ago, she was a really
insecure.
She was a bit insecure, but she was a bit of a nasty old woman, wasn't she? I think there were some scenes that I really didn't like Rita, so it was almost no wonder that Dennis was sort of
playing away.
No, sort of, I don't know. Talking to other ladies.
Talking to other ladies.
Not that I would ever do such a thing.
Well, in 2014, Rita confronted Dennis about his relationship with Gloria, and he said, "Well, Gloria is younger than you."
That was shocking.
I couldn't believe he said that. I don't know what he was trying to say, but anyway, it didn't work out because he ended up spending the night on Gloria's sofa, which then came back to bite him on the bum because Gloria told Rita that he was there the next day and sort of rubbed it in her face like, "Oh, your husband was on my sofa last night."
Yeah, because this was like Rita had taken Dennis back, or they were getting closer again. That seemed to come round again and again and again, didn't it? Like Rita kicking him out, she would then say, "Oh, okay, then well, let's try again." But then little does she know that he's had some horrible scheme to try and get back to her, which is kind of what happened today, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because Rita was like, "Oh, I'm just coming over to the cabin to see if you can make something of our marriage again." But you got your hands and you turned and you
there
punched
you are,
Norris.
standing over a bloodied corpse.
Yeah, not a corpse. He said that again. You wishing Norris dead.
I'm just reimagining it in my mind, and it's much more exciting.
After then, Dennis went off with Gloria in the back of their cab, and that was the most enraged that I'd ever got to Coronation Street.
Really?
Well, do you remember how mad I was when they drove
but
off?
you don't show your emotions, do you? You just kind of like, you did a little Ken face.
Yeah, that was so bad when he went off with Gloria, and I think they've changed his personality just a little bit too much. If they wanted him to be like a family man, but a bit of a cheeky chappy, that's fine. But to have him properly going off with Gloria, and just the way he was like, "See you, Rita.
I know, he's like, bye, babe.
Look after yourself."
Smoke me a kipper,
Didn't like
baby.
that. Did not like that at all.
So he left, but he came back not too long later with his tail between his legs, regretting his actions and trying to worm his way back into Rita's life. And he manages to get a bit closer to her when Tina died.
Yeah.
Hooray, Tina's dead. Let's worm my way back in there. But it didn't really work, did it? Because Norris always had his eye out. And I think really Norris was always going to be Dennis's downfall because they both bring out the worst in each other. And say what you like, but I really think even though there's nothing between them romantically, there's a bond between that Rita and Norris that will never be broken.
He's really, he's just a bit
like
too
sister.
overprotective. It reminded me of your little dog Bobby, that when he was sitting on your lap, and someone else tried to stroke him, he's like, yeah. And Norris just won't let anyone get close to Rita.
He is like a deranged chihuahua.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's a little bit like Nick with Gail. It's like,
yeah, get away from my property.
Yeah, loves her too much. But yeah, and that was the end of Dennis, because last Christmas, I think, his departure was announced. And as far as I've seen, Philip Lowry hasn't done any interviews or anything about it, but apparently he didn't see this news coming at all. Apparently a Soap Insider said that he thought the writers didn't think his character was viable anymore. And yeah, he'll be dearly missed by all the cast. But I don't agree at all that his character's not viable. I mean, they need as many older characters as they can get in the soap, and he certainly was capable to hold a storyline, even if it's just like these little short couple of week ones.
Exactly. I think he added colour to the street, and I think that it's going to be worse because he's not in it.
Yeah, it's just going to be another like sort of funny character
that's not there anymore. Just like, and also we often say that we like the scenes with the older characters, and he was just that little bit younger than the rest of them, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he could add a bit more energy to those scenes.
Maybe would be the only one left in say 10 years time. Don't know. But it's worth just thinking about. Yeah, so sadly he's gone. I will miss him. Not so much now as I would have done.
I think that they just tried to when they had his hands in the till today, it was just a last ditch attempt to make viewers not like him or something, because I think he's pretty popular with the viewers, but
we don't know.
It was a bad mistake. It was a big missed opportunity, because we didn't find out anything that happened about him really over those 40 years that he was away, apart from that going into prison, but that was only for a couple of years. There was such a huge backstory that they never explored, and I assume they never will do, unless they have like a child coming out of the woodwork or something.
Yeah, he's one of those characters that I just think he could come back, and I think he would be fine to come back. Some characters I think, oh well, see you later.
I wonder whether he'd want to now, because it
I
doesn't
don't think
seem
so.
like he's left on very good terms.
No.
But I would say personally for me that this has been Stuart Blackburn's biggest mistake as a producer. And I know lots of people haven't liked Stuart Blackburn, what he's done with the programme, but I've not had that much of a problem with him, to be honest. They've got rid of quite a lot of characters that needed to be got rid of, like Ryan and Stella and the like. But yeah, definitely getting rid of Dennis was not a very good move, and I don't think that he would come back now. So,
No, I wouldn't.
Shame that the first male character is now gone, but at least we'll have Ken back soon to take his place.
Yep.
But maybe not as Rita's husband.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not.
But yeah, that's it. So
that's Dennis.
yeah, so long, Dennis. It's been nice having you around for the last few years.
Yep.
Hope you find someone to live with and you don't end up dead on the streets.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's? I wonder whether he'll go back to Gloria.
Well, why not?
We could well get a text message from like Gloria texting Eva or something saying that
get all
Dennis
McGrann's
has
just-
been sniffing around me,
Yeah,
and whether or not
probably.
she accepts him back.
That would be quite nice.
Because he ended up coming back from Gloria because she got bored of him or something, didn't
they
they
just
say?
kind of fell out, and he said she was a bit of a psycho.
Yeah, which is true, but I mean,
They both are, really.
yeah.
You got to be a psycho to be on Corrie, otherwise you're boring, aren't you?